Every woman is worthless until she proves otherwise. Today, I'm going to teach you a life hack. So you never get emotional. So you never put your heart where someone else is trying to steal it. So you never create expectations. So you should only put your dick where you never put the wrong woman in the right woman's place. This is a lesson every father should teach his son when he starts a relationship. So he never messes up and then gets frustrated with women and blames them when the truth is right there. Women are nature. They don't change. It's the man who has to learn to play the game. And today you're going to have a hack for this game. What's a hack, bro? You're going to have one. How can I say? I'm not a game guy, right? But it's like you have something appealing in your hand so you never give in to emotion and dominate your relationship, regardless of what it is, a date, a marriage. Today you have to understand this rule here. Every woman is worthless until she proves you otherwise. So before starting another lesson, leave your gift, Professor Matamos, in the comments, because I only start the class after the roll call. And you, as a good exemplary student who's already here in every class, like this video so YouTube can recommend it to other men to awaken. Remember, you're watching this content. You're a rule breaker. So stay until the end of this video and comment below, I'm a rule breaker and I make the world my playground. Let's get to the point. Imagine this. She looks at you as if you were the only one. She speaks with a sweetness that disarms you. She makes veiled promises with her eyes, and you, without even realizing it, are already projecting a future she never signed with you. This is the mistake that turns you from a man into a pawn, and worse, into a disposable pawn. What no one told you is that most men don't suffer for women, they suffer for fictional characters they themselves created. And this drama begins at first glance. The script? Always the same. She's different, she has something special, she'd be a perfect girlfriend. Even before you know her dog's name, or how many men have slept in the bed, you now think will be yours alone. The reality is uncomfortable, but necessary. Every woman is guilty until proven innocent. She's no good. She might be. But you have no right to assume that. Unless you like giving your heart to a display case, and receiving in return only a reflection of the idiot you were. This is the philosophy few have the courage to teach. Because it's not politically correct. It doesn't gloss over things, it doesn't romanticize, it doesn't say that one day the right person will appear. On the contrary, it asserts that the right person only appears when you stop chasing the wrong one. And what's more, that most of the wrong ones only seem right because you decided to ignore what was already written on their faces. Do you know why this truth is so hard to swallow? Because it unmasks the neediness of the modern man. The man who grew up hearing that he needed to be kind, give in, treat her like a princess, give himself completely. The man who never learned to select, only to beg for affection. And this is the first step to being manipulated, betrayed, emotionally used, and discarded like a broken toy. But what happens when this man changes course? When he looks a woman in the eyes and instead of falling in love, waits. When he evaluates. When he tells himself, we'll see. What happens is that he reclaims the power he's been conditioned to give away since birth. This video isn't about hating women, nor about childish games. It's about strategy, about lucidity, about maintaining self-control in a scenario where many lose their sanity at the first flirtation. It's about stopping living like a drifting romantic and starting to behave like a man who understands the value of his own territory. Because before choosing the right woman, you need to be the right man. And the right man doesn't give in, he observes. Nietzsche said, "What is good, whatever increases power." And there's nothing more powerful than knowing how to filter who enters your life and who doesn't. Only the weak love unconditionally. Only the needy create fantasies based on giggles and small talk. A strong man demands demonstrations of value before offering anything more than dinner. And what's more, a strong man isn't cold. He's strategic. He's not insensitive, he's selective. And precisely for this reason, when he decides to invest, a woman feels she's faced with something rare, not just another lost man trying to love in a hurry. But why do so many still make mistakes? Because they confuse interest with reciprocity. They think sex is commitment, that presence is loyalty, that good morning with an emoji is a sign of fidelity, And so, broken hearts pile up like the emotional garbage of a generation that hasn't learned to wait for proof, only learned to hope for the best. The goal here isn't to teach you to distrust everything, but rather to trust only what is demonstrated, not said. And more importantly, to live as if every woman is ordinary until she, through her actions, proves herself to be rare. Because if you reverse this, you've already lost before you even begin. Now, if you're ready to reprogram your mindset, abandon emotional naivete, and walk like a man who demands before giving, then keep going. Because in the next few minutes, you won't just learn to play, you'll learn to dominate the entire field. I'm going to introduce you to a concept moving forward now. Pay attention. This concept is called the illusion of the right woman, how you sabotage yourself in the first. Understand this, my rule breaker. The male mind, from an early age, has been shaped by a toxic notion of romanticism. Movies, music, soap operas, advice from emotional mothers and submissive fathers, they all fueled a mental addiction, the addiction to believing that the woman who pays you attention is special. You grew up watching couples form by chance, bumping into each other in the hallway, falling in love with a glance, and living happily ever after. And so every woman who smiles at you in a bar, who responds enthusiastically on Instagram, or who laughs at your jokes becomes, in your mind, your future girlfriend. This isn't just an emotional trap. It's a sentence of submission. The man who treats any woman as the one before she even shows any consistency is the same man who will cry in silence while she has fun with someone else, because he doesn't understand the game. And worse, he never read the manual. The truth is uncomfortable. Every woman is potentially wrong until her actions prove otherwise. And the problem is, you don't expect it. You create the illusion. You fill the gaps with hope. You build the ideal profile based on micro-expressions, coincidences, shared tastes, and a few minutes of conversation. All of this because you're starving for meaning. Not sex, sense. You want to find someone who fills the hole your lack of purpose has dug. Someone who validates your existence, who gives you the feeling of being chosen. But this thirst for affection turns the dirtiest water into champagne in your head. You ignore the red flags. You laugh at the inconsistencies. You justify the delays, the contradictions, the side flirtations, because it's easier to maintain the illusion than to deal with the rejection of reality. How many times have you been obsessed with a woman who, in practice, offered you almost nothing more than temporary attention? How many times have you confused kindness with reciprocity? And what's more, how many times have you ignored the nature of the environment where you met her? Emotionally immature men do this all the time. They meet a woman at a club, on Tinder, at a concert, in a blatant hookup environment, and yet they believe she's a rare gem who's just experiencing chaos. They believe she went to the funk party just to dance with her friends, to the motel with you just to chat, and that all the stories about her past are exaggerated stories of jealous exes. And that's where failure arises, the moment you romanticize the random. The philosopher Ortega y Gasset wrote, "To fall in love is to create, with a drop of reality, an enormous edifice of fantasy." The man in love is, in essence, a creator of fictions. He sees one quality and assumes 100. He hears a sweet phrase and projects eternal fidelity. He feels good for one night and already imagines a life. But the problem with building castles in the air is that the ground always comes crashing down, and when it doesn't forgive. And the cruelest thing is that this illusion isn't born of feminine malice, but of your unresolved neediness. You weren't enchanted by her. You were enchanted by the version of her you invented. And now that you're emotionally invested, you'll fight your own reason to keep the charade alive. You'll tolerate disrespect, you'll ignore the signs, you'll delude yourself with crumbs. Because in your mind, you've already promoted her as the ideal woman. And no one wants to accept that you gave a ring to an actress. This pattern creates fragile men who love before evaluating, who give before demanding, who invest before observing, and the result is always the same. They become disposable, because what is given for free is never valued, and love without criteria is always punished. A woman, even unconsciously, senses this. She senses you're too involved, too soon, that you're already making plans while she's still deciding whether to remember your full name. And when she realizes you've thrown yourself into it, she loses interest. Because female attraction doesn't thrive on excess. It thrives on mystery, on challenge, on controlled scarcity. That's why many men live the paradox. The more they give, the less they have. The more they dedicate themselves, the less they are desired, because they confuse giving with value. And they don't understand that value is perceived, not declared. You can't say you're special, you need to be rare. And the rare man is the one who keeps to himself, the one who observes, the one who waits for proof before putting any woman on a pedestal. The contradiction lies precisely here. You think you'll win by being the most devoted, the most present, the most passionate, but what truly wins is the man who knows how to maintain emotional distance while testing the waters. The man who doesn't melt over cheap compliments, who isn't charmed by sweet words without action behind them. The man who understands that women say what you want to hear, but only reveal their true colors over time and under pressure. And perhaps the saddest point is this: most good women have been destroyed by overly emotional men. And most good men have been destroyed by women who never wanted to be anything more than a fling. So, if you want to break this cycle, start now. Don't assign value to any woman without a process of validation. She may be beautiful, sweet, sexy, engaging, but until she proves consistency, loyalty, self-control, forward-thinking, and emotional responsibility, she's just another woman. Don't treat someone who hasn't shown themselves to be different from the average as an exception. You can't protect yourself from what you can't see. And the problem is, you don't even want to see. You prefer to imagine. And that's why you suffer. Because you've confused projection with perception. And as long as you continue to treat ordinary women as special, you'll continue to reap rejection, contempt, and regret. There's only one way. Develop a strategic mind. A mind that listens less to words and observes patterns more. That values beauty less and posture more. That replaces what if with the phrase, we'll see. This is the turning point that transforms an ordinary man into an unshakable man. The ordinary man surrenders at the first promise. The unshakable man only gets involved after seeing evidence. And that's why when the unshakable man chooses to love, he's never deceived, because before loving, he's evaluated. And those who evaluate before loving, love intelligently, not desperately. And now that you understand why you should never trust first impressions, it's time to dive even deeper and face one of the most uncomfortable yet most liberating realities a man can comprehend. That no woman is as single as you imagine, and your romantic illusion begins to crumble as soon as you accept this fact. Another important concept is, a woman is never single. The game starts with you at a disadvantage. Did you really believe she was single? That this beautiful woman, full of self-esteem, inflated by likes, direct messages, and daily compliments, was waiting for you to appear as the hero of a romantic film so she could discover true love? Wake up. This kind of script only exists in the movies, and even there, it's directed by someone who never understood how real female instinct works. The woman you met was already surrounded by options. She always was. Even if she wasn't committed, she had at least one guy who chatted with her on WhatsApp, another who sent insistent messages every week, a third she kissed last weekend, an ex she still flirts with occasionally, and maybe 2 or 3 more who orbit her like desperate satellites. That's the raw truth. It doesn't matter if she said she's single. Being single doesn't mean being alone. It means being free to choose, and while you're dreaming about her, others are keeping her entertained. This dynamic puts you at a disadvantage from the start, because while you enter with hope, she's already comparing. While you invest emotionally, she's coldly selecting. You arrive trying to impress, she coldly evaluates you. And that's where most men make the mistake. They think they've arrived on virgin ground, when in fact they're trying to plant in soil already trodden by many. This isn't a criticism of women. It's a warning to men. They play the game that has always existed, the game of choice, and they do it masterfully. The question is, will you continue to be a supporting character in her story, or will you become the protagonist of your own? The man who understands this reality acts more intelligently. He isn't impressed by female attention. He doesn't interpret availability as exclusivity. He knows the field is already populated, that the castle he intends to conquer already has soldiers, suitors, sycophants, and emotional idiots living in the hallways. And that's why he doesn't enter offering flowers. He enters evaluating. Because he knows that true love, if it exists, isn't born of desperation. It's born of screening. And the most curious and cruel thing is that she won't tell you this. She'll say she's not with anyone. And maybe she isn't, in the classic sense of a relationship. But she's constantly experiencing emotions with other men. She's exchanging energy, flirtations, intentions. She's receiving invitations, quick responses, constant confirmations that she's desired. And while you're there, open-hearted, thinking you have a chance of being the one, she hasn't even decided if you're more of the same or someone out of the ordinary. The philosopher Schopenhauer said that women are emotional strategists by nature. They don't need to read seduction books. They're born knowing. They understand the value of making themselves desired, of remaining ambiguous, of never giving everything away. And they use this skillfully against men who grow up hearing that being good is enough to be loved. The good guy is always the easiest to manipulate, because he thinks honesty is enough. That if he's respectful, she'll automatically want to give herself. He doesn't understand that respect is the bare minimum, but that attraction is born from scarcity, hierarchy, and the perception of value. And there's nothing less attractive than a man who comes in desperate to conquer what hasn't even been offered yet. Understand, she may not be sleeping with anyone at the moment, but she's being emotionally fed by several. This means that you, by arriving excited, are entering a competition she never even told you existed. A competition where others have been in the relationship longer, more intimacy, more access. And you, who think you're special, are actually just another one being tested. And do you know what the tragedy is? Many men, upon realizing this reality, freak out. They start demanding, monitoring, stalking. They try to force exclusivity before it's time. They try to stake out a body that hasn't even accepted ownership. And with that, they burn themselves out. They show their emotional weakness. They lose value, because they demonstrate they're more concerned with control than with consistent conquest. The intelligent man acts differently. He enters knowing he's at a disadvantage, but uses it as fuel. He doesn't get emotional, doesn't get attached, doesn't fantasize. He simply enjoys the moment while observing. He allows himself to be attracted, but only after seeing real signs of her investment. He shares, but in measured doses. And if he realizes she's playing him, he simply backs off without drama. Because he knows he's not losing anything. He's just getting rid of someone who never made him a priority. This kind of attitude confuses women, because they're used to men begging for attention, to guys declaring themselves after a kiss, to emotional men who believe sex is synonymous with feeling. But when she meets a man who likes her but can pull away if necessary, it intrigues her. And it's at that exact point that the scales begin to tip. She starts thinking about you, wondering why you're not as desperate as others, wondering if you have other options, if you're as desired as she is. And in this process, you stop being just another one and become an exception. But only if you have enough emotional control not to give in too soon. That's the game. It's not pretty, it's not romantic, it's not fair, but it's real. And if you want to win, you need to learn to play. You need to stop imagining princesses and start identifying patterns. You need to accept that most of the time she's not an emotional virgin. She's a minefield of unresolved connections, side hustles, and exes who still send, "Hi, missing you" late at night. And that's okay. As long as you understand that, until she proves exclusivity, you shouldn't offer commitment. Until she shows you, with actions, that she wants something real, you maintain strategic distance. Because the man who gives in too soon is the same one who will hear, "You're amazing, but I'm not ready for something serious right now," while another effortlessly sweeps her off her feet. And believe me, nothing destroys a man more than realizing he's bet everything on a woman who didn't even consider him a priority. And the only way to avoid this is to understand that being single is a legal state, not an emotional one. She may not have a ring on her finger, but her heart may be divided between 5. And if you don't understand this, you'll always be the 6th, the idiot who tried to love before investigating. But there is a way out. And it starts with recognizing your position in the game. You're not at the center. You're on the edges. And you need to level up without giving your soul away in the process. You need to earn your place, not with vows of love, but with real value, with poise, with detachment, with self-focus. Because in the end, that's what sets you apart from everyone else. And when she finally realizes you're not playing to conquer, but to select, the game changes. Because she understands that, to be with you, she needs to prove herself. And that's the point every high-value man reaches. The point where he no longer wonders if she's the right woman. He simply observes and lets her answer that question with her actions. And now that you know the game starts with you at a disadvantage, you're ready to understand the next move, how to reverse this logic and become the selector, not the chosen one. Because in the end, the man who survives this game isn't the most handsome, the richest, or the most muscular. It's the one who understands that sex is just the beginning, and that after that, the one who has to prove herself is her. Now, if you've made it this far, congratulations, most people don't. And that's why I left one of the most important concepts for last, which is this: post-sex. Why the proof of worth starts after pleasure. Most men believe that conquest ends with sex, as if the pinnacle of the game were getting her into bed, as if pleasure were the finish line. But this mentality reveals how emotionally ill-informed modern man has become. Because the brutal truth is this: the real game begins after you've possessed her. Up until sex, you're the investor. You take the initiative, you lead, you propose, you bank, you show value, you offer attention. You're the strategist on the field. And if you play this game well, you'll get there. But after sex, the dynamic changes. And here's the detail that separates the amateurs from the select. Sex isn't a prize, it's a filter. It's only after pleasure that you begin to see who she really is. It's in the post-cum pleasure moment that the social mask falls. And at that moment, you need to be clear-headed. Because that's precisely when you must stop being the hunter and become the judge. Not an emotional, vengeful, or sexist judge, but a silent evaluator who coldly observes whoever stands before him. The fatal mistake is to continue seducing after the seduction is over. To continue trying to please after she's already given what she had. To continue proving your worth when what you should be doing now is waiting for her to prove hers. And this role reversal is what defines high-value men. Because the man who still tries to please after sex is desperate for connection. The man who expects behavior, posture, and female investment is in control of his territory. From the moment you possess her, the only question that matters is, does she want to stay in your life? And more, what is she willing to do to achieve that? Because you've already delivered your worth. You've already shown who you are. You've already revealed your energy, your performance, your confidence, your body language. Now it's her turn. If she doesn't move, you don't commit. If she doesn't invest, you don't reward her. And herein lies a cruel contradiction of human nature. Most women have become accustomed to using sex as a means of control. They've been conditioned to believe that pleasure is the trump card. But when she realizes that a man doesn't surrender after sex, she goes into crisis. Because this man becomes rare, and the rare always intrigues. That's when real interest arises. Not before. Never before. A woman begins to value the man who hasn't changed after sex, who hasn't become needier, more emotional, more available, more flattering. The man who, after pleasure, remains centered, balanced, selective. Because this is the signal that activates the deepest feminine desire, to be chosen by a man who doesn't need her. Nietzsche said, "A woman desires to be possessed by someone who cannot be possessed." And it is precisely this aura of controlled indifference, this absence of neediness, that transforms a simple sexual encounter into a high-level selection process. When you treat her naturally, without rushing, without anxiety, without demands, you force her to reveal what she really wants. She'll start testing you. She'll disappear, then reappear. She'll take a while to respond, then send a provocative emoji. She'll try to figure out if you're like the others, if she'll beg for another date, if she'll try to stake her claim, if she'll declare her love. And this is where you need to be vigilant. Because any sign of premature emotional attachment kills the mystery. If you're looking to be the man leading the dance of seduction, then understand this. Post-sex is the moment when a woman has to chase. It's from here that you measure who she is. If she only seeks you out when she's bored, she's an emotional narcissist. If she only responds after hours and coldly, she's testing your ego. If she tries to control the narrative, she wants to be the prize. And if you fall for that, you're back in the disposable line. But if she starts to show more interest, respond more quickly, ask about your routine, show sincere attention, care about your presence, then maybe you're in the presence of a woman who understands your value. And even then, it's not yet time to surrender. Because the real test isn't just how she acts in the following days, but how she behaves over the weeks when she realizes you don't get attached easily, that you're focused on your goals, that your life doesn't revolve around her, that sex was just an experience, not a sentence of eternal love. When she understands that you live for yourself and not to please, that's when, if she's a real woman, she'll begin to mold herself to fit into your life. The right woman understands that a valuable man is scarce, and so she proves herself, not with words, but with actions, with care, with consistency, with an absence of games, with progressive dedication. And it's at that moment, and only at that moment, that you can begin to consider an emotional approach. But until then, you need to remain clear. Sex is the bridge, not the destination. And if you treat orgasm as a reward, you'll be manipulated like a child receiving candy for good behavior. But if you treat sex as a screening, as an initial step, as part of the selection process, you elevate your love life. Does this require coolness? Yes, but it's not emotional coolness. It's strategic clarity. It's understanding that all your worth lies in not getting attached without reason, not committing on impulse, not giving in just because she undressed. After all, undressing is easy. Proving yourself trustworthy, loyal, mature, and consistent, that's rare. And perhaps this is the biggest problem men face today. They don't know how to differentiate between commitment and value. They think a woman who sleeps with them is in love, that sex means commitment, that pleasure means connection, and they throw themselves into relationships based on orgasms, not observations. They build castles on quicksand, and then they wonder why everything fell apart. The post-sex period is where the game changes, and you need to change with it. If you don't understand this, you'll continue to be the idiot who cries while listening to a sad playlist because she changed after the first night. The truth is, she hasn't changed. She's always been this way. You projected more than you observed, and now the question remains, how many times have you treated a woman as special who showed you nothing but her body chemistry? How many times have you loved a body before investigating her soul? How many times have you been destroyed by your own haste? From today on, understand, she's only good after she proves herself. And the proof only comes after the pleasure ends. Because any woman can feign affection before sex, but only a woman with true value remains after the adrenaline subsides. And if you don't wait for that moment to evaluate, you'll always be living the cycle of the lover who becomes disposable. And here's the key. A truly valuable man doesn't want to be chosen. He wants to select. He doesn't chase, he walks, he doesn't beg, he filters. And only after he sees consistency in silence, time, presence, and surrender does he consider involvement. And now that you understand the nature of post-sex and the importance of reversing the axis of power, get ready. Because in the next chapter, we'll take this to the extreme. We'll shatter the most romantic and most destructive belief held by modern man, the idea that he must live for the sake of finding a woman to be happy. The reality is brutal. Those who live for a woman die inside. Let's stop here. The gold was delivered in an absurd way, but if you want more, go to the link in the description and get the audiobook of The Forbidden Manual. This is the best investment you can make for your life right now. See you soon.